Longer rush hours, more cars, endless construction, and shorter tempers are causing more chaos on our roads. In fact, the figures for Ontario show the number of people injured in traffic accidents jumped to almost 122,000 last year. That's the highest number ever. In addition, 1,229 people were killed in traffic accidents. That's the highest number in 7 years. Ontario's transportation minister blames careless drivers with bad attitudes about driving.
But I don't think we can just give up and throw up our hands and say there's nothing we can do.
But there probably isn't. It's not going to get better out there, and you're not
We're going to try. We're going to try.
Booze is still a big problem. Alcohol is involved in 41% of all accidents, although that percentage continues its encouraging downtrend. If you're still annoyed about having to put on a seatbelt, consider this. Drivers who do not wear seatbelts are 21 times more likely to be killed if they're involved in an accident, and they're 76 times more likely to be hospitalized. And if you think you've been seeing a lot of bicycle riders getting into trouble, you're right about that too. Bicycle accidents in 1987 resulted in almost 5,100 injuries, the highest number since the province started keeping count. There are all sorts of interesting facts and figures in this report, but how's this for the most bizarre statistic? Last year in Ontario, there were 405 really unusual accidents. Unusual because the drivers of the vehicles involved were all unlicensed and all under the age of 16. Steve Paikin, CBC News, Queen's Park.
Plainclothes police officers were following this car in a residential neighborhood of Peel last night. The car was stolen in Mississauga, and the plates were stolen from New York State. Police say the officers got out of their car and identified themselves. Then the driver stepped on the accelerator and headed for the officers. The officers pulled their guns, police say, because their lives were endangered. The driver of the car, 17-year-old Wade Lawson, was shot in the head. The rear window of the car shattered by bullets. The student at Arundel Collegiate died in hospital this morning.
All of the available evidence and information we have at our disposal indicates that our officers were acting completely within their lawful rights as peace officers in the execution of their duties. But nonetheless, we are very saddened by this.
At a news conference late this afternoon, Police Chief William Taggart called for an independent inquiry.
This is the most tragic and unfortunate incident.
The officers who aren't being identified worked out of 12 Division's Old Clothes Unit.
I think they're first-class officers, which would be 4 or 5 years experience.
The housing boom is forcing governments to dig deeper into their budgets. New subdivisions mean new services. Many municipalities already charge developers flat fees or lot levies on new housing lots to pay for roads and water and sewer lines. Developers pass the cost on to home buyers. But sometimes developers refuse to pay for charges they think are unfair, such as for schools. To ensure local councils get the money they need, the province is looking at new kinds of levies.
We're just investigating the question of financing new growth.
Sources say the province may bring in guidelines or legislation to clarify towns and cities have the right to charge levies, but only for basics like road, water, and sewer systems. There could be exemptions for affordable housing, but bigger levies for large homes. And the province is also considering a separate levy in these new communities to pay for new schools.
It is absolutely 100% the wrong way to go about financing education.
Harris says he'd heard estimates the levy would raise house prices about $10,000. Home builders predict an increase of $4,000, but they say even that increase is punishing new home buyers.
I think the average family, I know the average family is the one that's going to suffer the most.
The province cautions none of these proposals is government policy yet. It wants to unveil them perhaps later this week in a discussion paper. And the focus of that paper is something developers agree on. That's the need to find new ways to finance housing development. Denise Harrington, CBC News, Queen's Park.
The United Church still hasn't resolved the issue of homosexual ministers. Today, the church's executive council asked for more input on the question from its members. Ever since a report allowing the ordination of homosexuals early this year, 2 parishes have split from the church. Now the issue goes back to the grassroots level.
All we are asking in our statement today is that our congregations tell us how they feel about the statement that was made, which is what has caused the pain and hurt in the church.
The Executive Council says the question of gay ordination may not be decided now until the next General Council meeting in 1990.
Check unit. Can I see your driver's license, ownership, and insurance, please?
With Christmas approaching, the RIDE program to reduce impaired driving everywhere has moved into high gear. That means more police and more random spot checks. And this year, for the first time, it also means a coordinated effort by police in both metropolitan Toronto and its surrounding region. Ontario Provincial Police are also part of the Metro RIDE team this year, another first.
And impose fines on offenders which are merely...
Young people concerned about smoking by minors lobbied the provincial government at Queen's Park today. They want the government to tighten the laws on cigarette sales to minors.
A fine of as little as $2 or as much as $50 is little more than a joke. However, the real joke is that this outdated act, isn't even being enforced.
The groups want to ban cigarette machines from places where young people gather. They're also asking for stiffer fines for anyone caught selling cigarettes to minors, as well as a tobacco licensing board similar to the LLBO.